Welcome one and all to episode 27 of Teatime. I'm one of your hosts, Petter, and with me I got my co-host, James.
Hello!
And today we are starting our reread of the Attack on Titan series, starting with the first 4 volumes. I like to just simply refer to it as the Trost arc. I know it's technically 3 arcs, I think. It's the first 2 chapters are the Fall of Shiganshina arc, then there's the Battle of Trost District arc, which I guess is the main thing, really, and the 104th Training Corps arc, which is kind of, I feel like it kind of cuts into that from time to time throughout the Trost arc, or throughout those chapters. Especially the last volume, in the 4th volume. But anyway,
Right.
we're talking about those first 4 volumes. That's the first 18 chapters of the Attack on Titan manga. And there's a high chance we might talk about things that happen after this arc as well, since this is a reread. It's not like our first time reading this. So here's a spoiler warning for basically the entire Attack on Titan manga, potentially.
Well, yeah, I mean, I say that this whole series that we're doing, like going back and reading the different arcs, I think it's with the intent of looking at the series as a whole.
For sure.
So if you haven't read the entire manga, then you probably shouldn't be listening to this. No, I mean, I would love to get as many listeners as possible, but I think for at least how I've been like taking notes and reading this is just how it plays together as a whole, as a story.
Exactly.
So yeah, I feel like it's pretty essential to have that background.
Yeah, and
forward.
I'm gonna make sure to give a warning like this at the start of every one of these episodes that we do, because we will. The intention is from this month onward, what Titan Teatime is going to be for the next 8 months or so, or 8 or 7 months, is arc discussions. We're gonna get through the arcs one at a time, like this. So yeah, getting into it, I guess we're just gonna just talk about kind of what comes to mind and what we've noted down here. I think there's several cool things in the very first chapter that, I guess that aren't necessarily cool in and of themselves, but that got really good payoffs later on in the series. Obviously, we got the title of the first chapter, "To You 2,000 Years From Now," which I always thought that title was interesting, thought provoking, because
Right.
it's just so cryptic just by itself. But obviously, much later on, when we get to know Ymir, like OG Ymir and all that, it makes sense actually. So I think obviously that's a cool thing there. And like also I guess the scene at Aaron's home, in which Aaron and Zeke later on revisited through paths, when we got to see that through a whole different perspective.
Right.
I guess that scene itself isn't too special, but it felt special rereading it now, knowing that Aaron and Zeke were there watching, I guess, also at the same time. It's just this meta thing. It's fun.
Well, and also getting Grisha's kind of point of view, because
Yeah,
he knows he's receiving these memories from Aaron,
right.
his son, and he's looking at him as a child. So I mean, you got to think he's having some existential crisis a bit.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So it's kind of great to see that parallel, and I don't know if he had planned that to happen at this point,
Right. It's hard.
but he tied it in very well.
He really did. It's also, with Grisha's, like, he's looking away while he's saying these words to Aaron. He's
Right.
like, and in obviously later on in chapter 122, was it 21? I think it was 121. He's looking old Aaron straight in the eyes, if I recall, and like that's how Isayama kind of made that work. Obviously, it might just have been something he made it work, in hindsight.
Right. Right.
It's a very good possibility. Regardless, it's really cool though. I love that.
Agreed.
Oh, and Aaron, Mikasa, and Armin sitting by the river or the canal, talking in the first chapter. Obviously, that's where the very last chapter started, at that location, or it wasn't Paths technically, but yeah, still having that
Okay.
location in both the first and the last chapter was also
Right.
really cool. I thought.
Yeah.
Um,
It was a good callback.
Very good. Yeah.
I think for me, the one that gets me, the most excited and just impressed with Isayama tying it all together is the "See you later, Aaron"
Of
thing.
course.
That was of course, right? I mean, that was one of the lines that I feel like not just me, but a lot of people in the fandom who were theorizing about what was the whole point of that? What was Aaron seeing at that time? And I think the payoff in the end was, at least for me, entirely worth it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Because it meant so much to both Aaron and Mikasa. I just got emotional just thinking about this scene and then how it ties into chapter 138.
Yeah. Oh
yeah. It was just really powerful going back and reading that and basically knowing what that all is. I feel like there is still like slightly some ambiguity to it. For example, we don't entirely know why Aaron was crying. I mean, we know the broad scope of why he'd be crying.
Right.
All the things, but was he crying because of the future he saw or was he crying because of the things he would do? Was he crying because he saw the moment Mikasa would decapitate him, their log cabin scene? Did he see all that at once? Like
Right.
there's that's kind of left unsaid by the end of the story, but I still think it works because you get the gist of it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And you also see how it connects in two ways, really. I guess Mikasa's log cabin dream thing, and then her, in reality, cutting off his head.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it doesn't really matter, I feel, the exact specific reason why he's crying. I feel like this is one of those instances where I feel like it's perfectly fine for this to be left to each person's interpretation.
Sure.
I think I think I've said this before. I like to think that while Eren was sleeping there under the tree, he basically was dreaming the entire series of Attack on Titan from beginning to end. Basically, everything that he had ahead of him was, well, yeah, he went through that in his dream, ending with his path's conversation with Mikasa. Obviously, the entire thing is a ride, an emotional ride, in a lot of ways. But I think especially that final scene, and especially since that is, as we can see in the first chapter as well, that's the last thing he sees is that interaction between him and Mikasa. I feel like he might just be crying because he has to say goodbye to her, to the love of his life. He knows that's the end for them. I feel like at least that's how I read it.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I could totally read it that way, and I think I want to read it that way.
Yeah, yeah. But it is a shame that this was never part of the anime adaptation. They didn't cover this, or like his dream. Like he wakes up with tears in his eyes, but he's
crying.
Yeah. But the dream itself isn't like, we don't have the "see you later" Aaron. That's not there at all, sadly, in the anime.
Yeah, there were some things that Wit neglected to add that I don't know. Maybe Isayama himself didn't know how he would connect everything back, but you think he would have, if they had been asking him really closely, he would have been like, no, make sure you keep that in there. Right. Faithful adaptation. Yeah. I don't know.
Right. I mean totally.
Yeah. But I mean, there was other things that they did that was a bit questionable.
Yeah, I think like for me, there, at least having gone through these 4 volumes today, the only other, like, I'll say this is a big one, a big missed opportunity for the anime adaptation, and the second one, because I really only think there were 2 big ones. The second one is the Mikasa's tattoo on her arm, like the Ackerman thing, was also completely left out of the anime. I think they switched it out for like a handkerchief embroidery technique, or like some weird stuff like that. Like, why couldn't they have just kept it as it is?
I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea what the creative choice on that was.
Right.
Or the reasoning, at least.
So strange.
Yeah.
But that again, of course, that is another one of those really cool things that got that was paid off much later on in the story.
Well, so real quick before I comment on the tattoo thing, I just want to say that Eren sleeping under the tree where he'd be buried is, very sad. But how he's in kind of that time paradox thing. And anyway, it's just very sad that whole part, and with what we know now, and it's just I guess I just want to say that. But
Oh yeah, oh for sure. It's very nice how his story both it started and it ended right there.
yeah, but about real quick about Mikasa's tattoo. Well, Wit should have added it, of course. I still think Isayama didn't put enough importance or give a good story reasoning for it. Yeah, it connected her with the Azumabito and the Hizuru and whatnot, and
Mm.
I guess that was neat to have Kiyomi, was that her name, to
Yeah.
have her connection there. But it felt like a plot thread that could have had more significance, but it just fell flat to me.
Yes.
And I obviously, when we get to that point in the manga, we'll, I guess, comment more. But
Right.
I think he could have done a little more with that than he did.
Yeah. No, I think I agree mostly with that. Yeah. Definitely could have been more. As with several things near the end there, but
True.
hey, we still love it overall.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, another I don't know if you heard about this. I personally haven't like seen it or like so I guess I haven't been able to confirm this with my own eyes, but what I heard back when the manga ended was that the page number on that page where Mika's like where Eren wakes up from the dream is page number 13. In the digital copies, like, or not copies, I guess is the wrong word for digital, but like in the digital editions of the series, people who have it, yeah, like on certain digital manga reading servers, that number 13 was removed after the manga was over. I think to kind of, or as from what I heard anyway, to sort of represent the 13-year curse being broken. I don't know if you heard about that. I thought it was really cool when I heard about it.
I think I vaguely remember that, but yeah, I totally forgot about that. And yeah, like that is pretty cool. Especially if it seems like that was deliberate, right?
It must have been. Yeah. If totally. Especially if it was removed right when the final chapter came out. But then again, I haven't actually seen it myself. It's just something I heard about. But yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
So one other, I guess, just kind of broader thing that where like the anime adaptation differs from the manga in these first 4 volumes or in this arc is that the anime kind of restructured everything and depicted it all in chronological order, whereas that's really not the case in these first 4 books of the manga, because it goes back and forth a lot between after they graduated and and then going back to the days while they were training and stuff like that, quite a lot. Personally, I actually rather like the way Isayama did it in the manga. I kind of enjoy that non-chronological order that he does, because to me it feels seamless. Like it makes sense to go back when he does, and stuff like that.
Right.
It never felt jarring or anything, and in a way, I like, thanks to him having done it the way he did it in the manga, I liked it because it kind of gets the story rolling much faster, much easier, and it gets you into it. Because already by the end of the first book, Eren has died.
Yeah.
So it's like,
First volume.
it took a hell of a long time to get there in the anime, which I think I've heard for some people, and I can definitely see where they're coming from. The start of the anime is a bit, I guess not counting the first episode, because the first episode really delivers, but after that, for a couple episodes, it kind of drags on a bit, like during the training episodes. So yeah, I guess I understand why they did how they did, because I guess it makes sense to give it like a chronological order. But I really do prefer the way Isayama did in the manga.
I think I agree. The one thing where I see, especially where Wit's coming from, not just for the fact that it's chronological, but I think the events that happen maybe make more sense when you have the background first and then what happens in Trost, because as you're reading the first two volumes, there's a lot of characters that show up, and you're not exactly sure who's who, like who's important here, why do I care? But then as you read into volume 3 and volume 4, you start to see who these people actually are, what their dreams and hopes are, what drives them. Why should I care about Jean? Why should I care about Sasha and Connie? I think you don't quite get that. You get enough, and I don't want to say like the pacing's bad or anything in the manga, but when you get like the backstory of who they are and how they trained before, I think you get their characterization better and you grow attached more to the characters. So then when you get into the Trost arc and you're seeing all this destruction and death, it means more. There's more worries, like, oh crap, I don't want Sasha to die. Oh no, I don't want this person to die. However, I'm still with you in that I think how Isayama does it is still well paced and flows very well. I just, at the same time, I can see why Wit would have gone the way they did with that, and I think it worked for me when I watched it.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna say I didn't like that either. Because I mean, I was hooked. I was hooked to it, regardless. But having now recently reread these first 4 books, I never care. I will say I never really, even in the anime, I never really got to really care about Mina, Carolina, and Thomas, and like those guys that died on Aaron's and Armin's squad in the beginning.
Yeah, it's so quick.
Like, regardless of which medium you're experiencing the story through, those characters were never really characters, I guess. They all had names, but that's about it.
I mean, to be fair, it was a little sad, and it's like, whoa, they all died.
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. Wow, that's this kind of anime, kind of a situation.
For sure. But I'd say it was basically the same, or at least for me, the emotional investment was the same for the anime and the manga, for those characters. Yeah. But I will say one thing that I never felt that bad about Marco dying in the anime. Like, I don't know. I don't think they nailed...
I think I can get that.
Yeah. They didn't really get you invested with him as well. I thought in these first 4 books of the manga, Isayama did it a lot better. There was even that one scene, the one that transitioned into the reveal of his death.
You're right.
That was completely cut from the anime completely. And like, I guess that wasn't all. I think there was probably some other things, but that was definitely a big thing that helped make his death more impactful.
Oh yeah, totally. It is.
Sure.
It is a seamless transition to that. And it catches you off guard because you're in the flashback and he's gonna say something to Jean. And you're like, oh, this is gonna be pretty good. And boom, he's like half of his head is gone.
Yeah.
It's so well revealed.
Right.
In its tragedy, that the anime just fails epically at it.
Sadly, yeah. It was sort of a similar. Or actually, no, I'm not gonna. I was gonna compare it to another anime, but I shouldn't because it would be a spoiler for that one. I don't want to accidentally spoil another anime. So let's move on from that. But I guess moving on a bit. Mikasa said to Eren at one point, I think it was in the first book, she said, "Without me around, you'll die an early death," which I guess really by itself doesn't really, and especially the first time reading, doesn't hold much weight necessarily, other than I guess saying something about her character, kind of what she's all about. But I love how now that we know that Ymir was reaching out to Mikasa, and for that specific reason, to keep Eren alive until, or at least the way I interpreted that, to keep him alive until the moment when she had to kill him. So those words really sort of reflected that. I feel like if Eren had died any earlier than he ended up doing, he wouldn't have changed anything. But thanks to Mikasa taking his life right when she did, no sooner, no later, Eren ended up changing everything.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that kind of hindsight we have.
Right.
Or foresight.
Foresight. Yeah, that's the word. Yep.
So, knowing what we know, do these Eren and Mikasa scenes all the way from the beginning of Volume 1, do they change at all for you?
I think, well, this one's, as I mentioned, is one example of that. Probably the
Mm-hmm.
strongest example of that, or the one that I took note of anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, there's at least one instance of Mikasa getting one of those headaches, which is supposedly Ymir reaching out to her. I don't remember if there were more than that one time when they ran away with Hannes in these first four books, but there was that, I guess. Something that we understand a little bit better now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I had anything else though. Do you have anything in mind?
Um, it's nothing particular. Just knowing, but I guess it's similar to what you were saying. Knowing that
Hmm.
Mikasa would be the one to end up killing Eren, but that
Right.
they both loved each other very much. It is kind of, for me, tragic to see their kind of love story start again. I mean, it's sweet, but it's a bitter sweetness.
It
So,
is. Mm.
um, yeah, for me, it was just looking at it kind of from I guess, a love standpoint.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's still, but also think about how Ymir was reaching out to Mikasa in that way as well.
It's really cool how, even though this all probably wasn't planned out, like I'm sure some of it was, but like not all of these details
Right.
surely were not planned out ahead of time. But it still feels like it could be, like it all makes sense. It all fits so well. This first chapter fits so well with, the last several chapters of the manga. It's great. But yeah, I did love how, like, there was several shots of Bertold, or like panels of Bertold kind of in the background, giving like these strange kind of nervous looks.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy that. I think they did work some of that into the anime as well, but I feel like at least I picked up on it more often now reading through the manga. Like he's like on the side of a panel or in the background of a panel with these like nervous, strange gaze.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty fun.
There was one part where like Eren was explaining the Colossal and the Armor Titan,
Hmm.
and as he's explaining the Colossal Titan, there's a panel that shows Bertolt in it, and then as he's explaining the Armor Titan, I'm pretty sure there's a panel with Reiner in it.
Yes, that is true. I did take note of that as well. I don't remember in the anime if they did it for Bertold, like if they kept the camera on Bertold, but I do know for a fact that in the anime the camera kind of lingers on Reiner for a bit when Eren mentions the Armored Titan
Hmm.
as well. So yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah,
I wonder how many people actually pick up on that, because for me,
yeah,
as I
I
said, like I
wonder.
had not suspected those two at all to be those two Titans, like when the reveal came.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, I don't think that would have been something that I would have picked up on until they were on the tower, um, or at least that part of the story.
yeah.
At in season 2, whatever.
Mm.
Um, at this point, yeah, definitely, it would have gone over my head, I think.
Like for me, I had just completely ruled both of them out completely until they were like completely revealed to be those two, because I was kind of like thinking about their ages, and I was like, man, 5 years ago they would have been way too young to do that shit. turns out I was way wrong, but yeah, I had them completely ruled out for that reason.
Hmm.
um,
I mean, to be fair, it's a good reason.
yeah,
They were really young.
they were.
So, a couple things. One, I think Isayama does a great job of helping the reader feel that despair that humanity felt,
Yeah.
as being trapped in a cage kind of situation, and then when the Colossal opens up the hole, kind of the chaos that breaks there. But then later on in the arc, when it happens again in Trost, it's
Right.
all over again. You feel the despair. People are dying left and right. So many deaths happen in the end of that first chapter in Volume 1. So many deaths.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, and then you kill the main character in the first volume. Like,
Exactly.
who does that? The first volume.
Yeah.
It's now that's something the anime didn't quite. I mean, yes, like within the first few like 3 or 4 episodes, Eren does die.
I think he died in the 6th episode in the anime.
Oh, 6th episode.
I could be wrong though. I feel like
Well, I'm
Any-
not an expert on the
any-
episode, so you're probably right. So that's That's fairly soon, I guess, like halfway. Well, not halfway through a 12 episode
Right.
binge. Anyway, but the first volume, now that's pretty big.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty lack of a better word, ballsy.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And we all know Izuyama is ballsy.
Yeah.
Also, during that Trost, the battle in Trost, we were introduced to Louise and both of her parents,
Right.
as
Yes.
well as Mr. Reeves, who would also come back later on in the story, and
Hmm.
play a more important role. So really cool how Isayama found ways to work those characters back into the story and make them relevant.
Indeed. I guess probably my favorite scene within this entire arc or these 4 volumes is Mikasa's backstory and
Ah, yes, yes.
how she meets Aaron and all that. I mean, it's so tragic and just so disturbing. I mean, these are children and this is happening to them. Obviously, those men were terrible, terrible people, horrible people.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, I guess punishment for what they did, but at the same time, this is like I forget how old Aaron was, 10, I guess,
Like
maybe 8
9, I
or
think,
9.
because he was
Yeah, I
10
think you're
when
right.
the wall fell. So this
Yeah,
might have been a year before that, maybe.
yeah. So I don't know. At that age, just murdering
Yeah.
people is just pretty intense.
Yeah.
Um, but still, it sets up both of their characters very well, or their kind of mindset
Hmm.
extremely well, and gives Mikasa such a strong purpose and will
Totally.
that she carries on throughout. I say throughout the manga. I think some people would disagree with me, but
I mean, I
um,
think she does. It just isn't as prominent, I
yeah.
guess,
Uh,
anymore.
I mean, I agree with that. That she does take a back seat through like the middle sections,
Hmm.
um, but I think that was necessary for in order to give everyone enough spotlight. But anyway, um, here she definitely takes the spotlight, and I don't know. I just love her resolve to not die so that she can still be with Aaron.
Oh yeah.
If I die now, I won't be able to remember you. And again, that's another parallel to how 138 was done. You know, how Aaron is trying to get her to forget about him. She says, I can't do that
Hmm.
because if I die, I'll forget about you.
Exactly.
And yeah, I thought that was, again, another very well done way to tie in and put a bow on Mikasa's character.
Definitely. I really enjoyed her, like both she and Armin. I think through these books, I think especially volume 2, that was when Aaron was gone. Both
Mm-hmm.
she and Armin had like were really really engaging and interesting and really good characters. I
Right.
I feel like I appreciated both of them probably more, at least in this part of the story, than I had before. I also want to make clear that I haven't read this part of the manga in like over 4 years, like 4.5 years maybe.
Whoa.
Like this part of the manga I haven't read in that long. I like maybe I've gone back to like a page like to kind of check something specific, but like
Mm-hmm.
as a whole I haven't read these 4 books in over 4 years.
Mm.
So just wanted to make that clear. So like a lot of it is like a little bit like several parts I had sort of forgotten. At least like the manga unique ones, uh, unique parts like sort of as we talked about earlier, the transition leading into the reveal of Marco's death, for example. I had completely
Yeah.
forgotten about that until I
Mm-hmm.
reread this recently. So yeah, I just want to say that. And so when I read volume 2, or when I reread volume 2, I felt like I don't know, I felt a stronger uh, appreciation for both Mikasa and Armin than I think I did in that part of the story before.
Nice.
So really enjoy that. Also about Mikasa and those human traffickers, they referred to her ancestors as being Asian or being from Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, they use that word, which I
Yeah.
wonder if that's something that Isayama would have kind of retconned later on, or if he would have wanted to rather, like, because well, we know that later on in the story when we get names for locations, they're never the same names as in our real world.
Right.
But here they
Maybe backwards, but they're
right,
the same.
exactly, several times some backwards names, but like a straight up name like Asia like that to be used never happened later on in the story. So I feel like maybe that's something Isayama would have changed today if he could, perhaps, or I don't
Right.
know. I just it just felt weird based on kind of how the story went later on. Another thing I thought was interesting that don't think I ever really thought of before, but reading it now recently, I sort of compared it. Eren, when Eren, Mikasa, and Armin were inside of Eren's skeleton, when they were being questioned by that guy who was scared shitless.
Yeah.
In that scene, after Eren had summoned the skeleton around them to protect them, and they were considering what options they had and all that. Eren thought of leaving, just going off alone, completely, but he didn't. But I felt like had he done that, it would have been basically the same, like a very similar thing as what he actually ended up doing later on during the 4-year time skip, when he left Mikasa and Armin and everybody else to kind of go do his own thing, because that's kind of what it sounded like he was about to go do in that moment. Obviously he didn't, but had he done it, I just feel like it would have been a similar action, kind of.
You know what my thought was?
What?
That I wonder how long he'd survive out there. Just because.
Yeah.
You would have Mikasa and she would do a fantastic job, but there'd be a certain point where you'd be overrun by Titans, and Bertolt and Reiner and Annie would probably go after him at one point.
Oh
So
yeah.
I don't think he would have
That's
lasted very long.
No.
Lasted very long.
No, he wasn't ready yet to go off alone.
But I think, that plan was definitely in his mind.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
He just was able to execute a little better after
Exactly.
kissing Historia's hand.
Right, exactly. And it makes sense. I think it's fun, like one of those things. Because obviously, he's the same person then as he was, 4 years later or whatever.
Yeah.
He's still the same person. So having the same thoughts, it makes sense that he would have similar thoughts. And so maybe that is something that he had, in the back of his head since that moment. And then he ended up doing it when he knew more about the world and knew more about himself.
Yeah.
Another one of those, like, I guess, alternate reality or kind of like what if things that I thought of, partially related to Eren, I guess, but more so Marco. Eren suggested that Marco would be a good squad leader. And to which Sasha agreed, saying that she had a feeling that she would survive if she was on Marco's squad. And I just had to like ponder, that like what would that reality be like? Because we know pretty much for a fact that Sasha has really good instincts.
Yeah.
That's something Shadis makes a point out of, and it's something we've seen throughout the series too. So with those good instincts of her, for her to say that she has a feeling she would survive if she was on Marco's squad, I guess that's where my alternate scenario kind of grew out of. What if Marco hadn't died in Trost, and he had become a leader of sorts somehow in the Survey Corps, and Sasha having maybe fought under him, she wouldn't have died as she did. Like, things could have been so great if Marco hadn't died. Maybe. Like, it could have saved Sasha.
And then no one would have hated Gabby, and then
it would have saved the fandom.
You see, it's all because Marco died.
Oh my god.
So something I didn't notice is when John is naming Marco, he calls him the leader of the 19th squad. So I guess he was a leader then.
I guess for that little squad, I guess.
For their training, for the
Right.
104th training corps.
I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that he had become a leader in some capacity. So, but
right.
I mean,
I hadn't actually either. Really, I guess it could have just been like a temporary thing. Like, oh, we don't have much time. We gotta assign roles real quick, kind of.
Sure.
Perhaps.
Sure. Totally.
But also, like, I guess some thought would have gone into it, especially considering a lot of his classmates, like a lot of them seem to think he would make a good leader. So. Makes sense.
On that, I think it's very interesting. Eren would be, I don't know, just be so forthcoming about him being a leader. Like, I I feel like usually MC is like, no, I'm gonna be the leader. You know, I'm the main character. But no,
uh
he was totally down with. I mean, Aaron does have those moments, I suppose, but Aaron was really chill with it. He's like, I think you'd be a great leader. Like, I'd
exactly.
rally around you.
Yeah, it was definitely
Um,
nice to see that kind of side of Aaron. Although I don't think I agree with you that Aaron would feel like he himself should be the leader. I don't think he's ever really had that sort of.
oh well, right.
Mm.
I just meant MCs in general. You know,
Okay,
and
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But I guess other leaders we get. I think in this arc we see two potential leaders besides Marco kind of rise up, and that's John and Armin. So with John, I, obviously what Marco said had a big role in his decision, and I guess you could say that was a really good leadership moment for Marco. I mean, you know,
Hmm.
but I think for John it was so crucial for him to tell everybody that he was going to join the Survey Corps. Otherwise, maybe Reiner and them would have joined, but I don't think Sasha or Connie or some other people would have joined as well if it wasn't for kind of John's um, decision at that point.
Yeah.
So, I think while I never thought that he would end up being like the leader of the Survey Corps at one point. I do think like he showed some of that leadership capacity, or at least the ability to be an example and help others follow that example.
Yeah. And
Um,
also Marco's words to him about why he was a good leader, I
yeah,
think is also very true.
so true. And then with Armin, like I think there's a few moments within the Trost arc where, or even the training part, where the people comment on his smarts, but then they just like, well, he just needs more confidence. If he had the confidence, he could be maybe something more. And to me, I think, especially now knowing what we know, it's pointing towards him becoming a leader of men. You know, a leader of the Survey Corps, not just
Mm.
Survey Corps, but just I guess something bigger than that. You
Yeah,
know,
I still don't think he's an ideal leader. I think he's a
really.
fantastic tactician. Like he comes up with tremendous ideas,
Uh huh.
but he doesn't lead. Like he doesn't lead. Uh, like he does second guess himself too much. Like, and I don't know if that ever really, if he ever really got over that, even in like the whole story. Like, I think surely he improved, but I don't think he completely got past that. He doesn't have. I don't think he has the perfect confidence of a leader.
Well, I think that what Marco says about Jean being like, because he says he's a weak person, right?
Yeah,
Is that what? I think that works for Armin as well.
it does.
Armin has those tendencies to doubt himself, like you said, but he's able to understand people because of that. Um, and I think that that's truly what makes him a good leader in that sense. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
guess.
we've been about this a
Yeah,
long time before,
we
so
have. I'm just gonna make one little
sure.
statement though, because I just feel like had Isayama shown Armin's leadership more after he took over after Hanji,
Mm-hmm.
I might have had a different. Well, I may have thought differently about it. I just don't feel like we got to see Armin be a leader enough. Like, surely he has amazing qualities in strategy, like tactics and understanding well the mindsets and the thoughts of people with very drastically different points of view. Like, those are all amazing abilities of his.
Mm-hmm.
But to lead, I just don't feel like we ever got to see him actually do that.
Hmm. So what is your definition, or what would you expect to see if you were to say, oh, now that's a leader kind
Well,
of thing?
I guess rallying people or like getting people fired up, but also being able to give commands in the heat of the moment and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. I probably shouldn't comment, but I'll just say that
Mm.
I do think there was moments where I think kind of gave some inspiration to people, and also took charge when a plan needed to go into action. He gave orders, and he told people what to do, and people looked to him in order to understand how to handle a certain situation all the way to the end. Obviously, I guess towards the end, there was less of Armin doing that. It wasn't until they got really up into the plane where I felt like Armin, Master Tactician, actually started doing stuff again. But
yeah, and then it's the role of a tactician rather than a leader. So
I think you could still be a tactician and a leader. Like, I don't think you have to separate those two, you know?
Yeah. I guess we have to agree to disagree.
That's fine.
On this, as
That's
always.
That's okay.
It is fine.
Yeah, no. But I'm glad we were able to look at it two different ways. And I could totally,
Absolutely.
and I do see where you're coming from. So it's not like I'm like appalled by what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
And I'm not saying there's none of that in Armin. I just don't feel like there's enough. I guess, at least for me personally, to.
you know what? I would not have mind seeing more of it. Like I said, I feel like, towards the end, there just wasn't as much Armin coming up with crazy plans. It was just more like everything is falling apart as Eren is running away. Like, what's going on?
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Right. I don't have too much else, I will say. So I guess you go next if you have any other points.
Yeah. Eren says that the idea of humanity uniting against a common enemy is pretty rosy and a dull plan.
Exactly.
And I agree with him in the, at least where his point of view is, because they're in the walls and yet they're not united enough to take down the Titans.
Right.
So I totally see where he's coming from. But it is also ironic that it kind of ends up being his plan.
Except it wasn't really, though. His plan was to wipe out the entire world.
No.
And not leave any others to unite together.
I don't think so. I don't.
He said if he could have, he would have wiped out everybody.
He didn't say that exactly. What he said was he would have done it anyway. He would have kept going, even if he knew that he wasn't going to get stopped. And I think that's just because there was this drive pushing him to keep moving forward, kind of a thing. I think he knew that 80% was going to die. Like, that was just the number that he knew.
I wonder if he always knew that, though. I wonder if he always knew, like, that the details on that level. If he knew, if he had seen that far ahead from that moment, I wonder.
Yeah, I have thought about, like, when did he see basically everything. I'm not sure if it was when he kissed Historia's hand or when he got into paths and kind of connected with Ymir.
Right.
Either way, by the time he's talking to Armin, he does know.
Yes.
So, to me, and maybe I'm just misinterpreting it. I just don't see him. I don't know. I didn't see that his plan was to wipe the entire world, but it was to make Armin and the gang the heroes of humanity, and so basically rallying against the Titans, humanity rallying against the Titans, against.
I mean, regardless of what his plan was, it is what ended up happening.
Right.
Although not completely. At least, I guess to a degree it did.
To a degree.
Yeah.
To a degree.
But yeah, it is pretty funny. It is kind of ironic.
Yeah. At the same time, it's we see how civilization goes back to war at the end of 139, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what Eren is saying here is not too far off, in that while there may be a temporary peace, I guess war does continue. People still fight over things no matter what.
Exactly. I think that kind of also resonates. I mean, I think the story as a whole is a lot about those sorts of questions. I think there was a point in the Uprising arc when Erwin said something like, there will always be conflict between humans until there is only one human remaining. But until
Right.
then, there will always be conflicts between people,
Yeah.
which I think is very true. Sadly.
Yeah, and then the rumbling Jaegerist fans are like, see, then he should have wiped up the entire world. It's like,
Yeah.
you do realize that if the Eldians would still be alive, like the people on Parody would still be alive, there would still be conflict. Like, just because you got rid of only everyone except one people, those people would still fight each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can't have your cake and eat it too, Like,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I didn't want to start bringing that up. But
Well, you did it.
anywho, I did it. So yeah, I thought it was just funny, ironic, because I don't know if you remember when I was rereading the manga last year. I sent like tons of my thoughts over Discord.
I do remember
typing
this.
like crazy.
Yeah.
And this was one of those where I was thinking about that concept. I wasn't able to go back far enough and find what I actually said. So unfortunately, but I just that this line has got me thinking a lot, and so to see that it turns out to be, I guess, not part of the plan, but at least an effect or a byproduct of the plan,
Right.
Of Aaron's master plan was very interesting.
For sure.
And I wonder if Isayama had at least planned on something like that.
Yeah.
From the beginning, that Aaron would end up being the enemy for humanity to rally against.
There's so many questions like that. Like,
I know.
Was this planned out? Was this planned out?
Yeah.
Like, if I would ever get to like ask Isayama some questions, I think most of the questions would be those sorts of questions.
It's true, because you just want to know, like, how much is planned, or is this just like on the dot? It's like, oh, let's try this.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I think the first few volumes, while they do, as I said earlier, paint a very tragic story, and if you feel the despair of humanity. Well, actually, before I go to the next point, sorry, just I feel like I need to comment on the despair and humanity part. He does such a great job of putting the reader in a certain perspective, because right now we're in a perspective that humanity is all that's left. Everything that's in the wall is all that's left of humanity.
Right.
And we have this idea set up, but but now we know that's not the case. So it's just, I don't know, just so well done to set up certain expectations and then just break it all apart. And that's what makes so many of the reveals that happen later on just that much more mind-blowing.
Totally.
But besides that despair of humanity, the first few volumes are incredibly comedic. Like, the part of the Trost arc, not so much, or at least when they're fighting in Trost. But when you get to like volume 3 and volume 4, particularly volume 4, it's just gag after gag after gag, and Sasha's hilarious, Mikasa's hilarious.
Right. Even Mikasa was pretty funny.
Right. Well, you know what? Even in volume 1, it kind of happens. There's a few just kind of awkward, silly moments where this is one I'm thinking of. Oh shoot, what was their name? Oh, Hannah and Franz, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
One, that's, you have the death scene. I mean, that's like disturbing.
Yeah.
But before that, when the Colossal Titans appears, they're like, "Are you okay? Yeah, I'll be okay. I'll never leave. I won't leave you," or whatever. Mikasa sees it, and then she starts looking around, like she's obviously looking for Eren, and she's her boyfriend, and she's like, "Okay, where did he go?" And she sees him. She tries to reach out to him, but Eren is just like totally like would talk with his dude bro.
Yep.
And just kind of ignores her. I kind of got a crack out of that.
True. Yeah, that is really funny.
But anyway, so there's just so many funny moments. Do you have a favorite funny moment from?
I mean, I've mentioned this one I think several times on Titan Teatime. It's when they're walking down the stairs and Reiner says that the second weak spot of the Titans is shoving your sword up their butt, and Connie is like, "What? I didn't know about that." And even I think Sasha isn't like, she doesn't look surprised, but she's like, "Oh, that's news to me." And Jean is like, oh, dude, you know that those could be your very last words, so like watch it, Reiner. That's all one of my all-time favorite pages, like in Attack on Titan,
It's a good one.
especially for comedy.
It's so good.
But another one that I had actually forgotten about until recently when I reread this was, I think it was in the first book when I think it was the first time we see Eren and Jean fighting, or like arguing at least. And Eren, he fucking roasts Jean real good by saying something about like his like the interior of his head being soft or something like that. Like he like it was so good. And I think that was the first time we ever got to see Reiner at all, was his reaction to that roast that Eren did on Jean.
Yeah.
Reiner just like his drink comes out his nose. Like I think that was the first we saw Reiner like at all. I could be wrong, but like I thought that was really fun. Like both the burn that Eren inflicted on Jean, but also Reiner's reaction to it was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That fight scene, there are a lot of really funny faces. Like there's one girl who's like really like into it, like she's blushing and she looks like she's like, oh my gosh, this is exactly like my fantasy. John and Eren fighting. But then there's some other guy who's looking at the camera, like looking at the panel, and he's like like peace signs or whatever. You know, what do you?
Oh.
It's in that same with the flustered girl. Like,
oh really?
It's definitely a joke, and I think it just shows that while Isayama is writing a very tragic manga, he has these like all these comedic moments, and he has a sense of humor.
He really does.
And to think he doesn't is silly in my opinion. Like, you know, you're missing a whole side of his writing style by ignoring that. So anyway,
absolutely.
I'll take a picture of it so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yes, please.
It's like in a crease. But anyway, so there's that funny moment. Another one of my other favorite funny moments, besides a lot of what happens with Sasha, grade A comedy. There's one moment with Annie where she's bonding with Eren, and she's like, you know, I wouldn't mind teaching you some of the some of my like techniques. He's like, no, are you kidding me? That hurts. No way. It's like, no, please, I insist, and just whacks him to the ground.
Right?
It's so good. That made me laugh out loud, like literally. It's so good.
Yeah, that is really good. I guess we're sort of near the end of the discussion. I guess we've started talking about the sort of general things. And I think one general thing that I sort of wanted to comment on as well was Isayama's drawing skills. Obviously, started off a little wonky, like especially like the first 2 chapters or so. I mean, they're not bad, but it clearly gets better over the course of the story. And I feel like even just over the course of these first 4 books, you can definitely tell like a difference. Like it definitely improves just over these first 4 books. It definitely also keeps improving after this for sure. But it's so cool how just in 4 books it's definitely improved noticeably. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It was a little jarring actually to go to the first chapter after reading 139. You go to the first chapter. It's like, oh man,
yeah,
this is rough. No, I mean, I think he has had strengths even back when he's first starting, but it is just a little different.
For sure.
At the same time, you could tell where he had more time, or where he took more time for a certain panel. You know, there's a lot more detail, and and the faces looked a little better, versus panels that were just kind of just quickly drawn and just a little wonky. But obviously, over time, he got a lot better at doing that.
So much better.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And I guess I have one final question for the both of us.
Sure.
If you have an answer to it anyway. Out of, I guess, just looking at the story told in these first 4 books, which character to you had your favorite, I guess, character journey or character arc throughout these four books here?
Yeah, I think I said earlier it has to be Mikasa. Aaron is up there just because, um, he goes through. He goes through the tragedy of his mom dying, and then his vow and promise, um, to do that, and the obstacles he has in that way. But for me, it's just that the whole scene with Mikasa coming to grips with her feelings in a sense, and saying that this is a cruel yet beautiful world, or cruel world yet so beautiful, something like that. And yeah, it's for me that will always resonate,
Yeah.
with me, and yeah, it's just an important part.
Yeah, it's really, really good. For me, the character that to me had the most, the best character journey throughout these first four books is actually Jean.
Ah,
I like he, and we did our top 10 favorite characters a few months ago. He isn't even in my top 10. I mean, I love, I've always liked him, but
yeah,
yeah, like for these first four books, really, really liked his like development from being, I mean, he's always been a very honest person. He even makes a point of that himself. But that I think that was very clear even before he proclaimed it.
Right.
From the very first scene he was in. That's been a very big thing for him. But also that he knows what he wants, and he's very sure of himself about what he wants and what he needs and stuff like that. And to see him go from wanting to join the military police to the whole thing after Marco dies and he's by the
Right.
fire and deciding to go with the scouts instead. Like, I don't know. To me, that was probably the part that got me the most emotional in these first four books.
I agree that he has uh, a great growth, and you can visibly see it there. I just, and no offense to John fans. I mean, I'm sure if there are John fans, they probably stop listening because I'm such a terrible Jean hater.
I am
But
a Jean fan though, so maybe we make up
that's
for
true.
it. Like,
Maybe we even out
right.
somehow. And I will say that by the end of the story, I had grown much more welcoming to Jean as a character. So I don't harbor those same that same hatred as I did before.
You had hatred
But
toward Jean?
well, dislike dislike
Okay.
because I just if the Attack on Titan world was real and I was in that world, I would butt heads with Jean so bad. Like his character just frustrated me, especially when I first watched the anime. I did not like John.
Really?
I still I think I respected his decision to change, or his willingness to join the Survey Corps and everything. But I guess part of it was I did see him as a love rival for Mikasa.
Oh, so that's where it's all rooted from.
But it's really not though, because he's just so cocky and arrogant.
I love it.
And he was pushing down Aaron when he was struggling. I hate people like that. I hate people who are so willing to shove it in your face. Yeah, so that's the main reason why I was so like against Jean. But as you go on, obviously they become great friends.
Right.
And he's a good person. But for me, like this first arc is where I just learned where my dislike for him started.
I think those character arcs are some of the most interesting ones though, where a person or a character really goes from being or from having a lot of bad qualities to becoming a better person.
True.
Like,
I mean, yeah. That's true.
Which definitely happened to a degree over the course of these first four books, and of course it will continue to happen. He will continue to grow in some other ways later on. But yeah, I really liked him. If a top 10 list had more spots than 10 spots, he might have made the cut. But yeah, sadly not.
I do want to again say that I don't like hate him, especially now.
Yeah,
I think my you know, I've seen like his qualities and everything. So
Yeah, and I mean, even young Jean, like old Jean, like Jean in the early parts of the story, he makes the story exciting with the drama that he causes.
yeah,
Right?
I guess so. Yeah, doesn't mean I have to like him.
No, for sure.
because
No,
of it.
absolutely. But yeah, do we have anything more to add about these first 4 books before we end it off?
This part of the story is what hooked a lot of people. I think not everybody,
Right.
but I think
Most people, surely.
for most people, and I think for me, it definitely was. That those first 2 chapters are so impactful
Oh yes.
and just dramatic. Just the way that leaves an impression on you. It's hard to find other stories like that. I think I remember you arguing to your eternity.
To me, yeah,
had
to
a-
me, the first chapter to Your Eternity, I think, is my
Mm-hmm.
favorite first chapter ever. Yes.
And you know what? This Attack on Titan. Technically the first chapter is not even the part where the Colossal Titan comes in.
Yeah, he comes in at the very, very end. You see him peeking over the wall.
So that's impactful, but you know it's the next chapter that really I think puts it together. So
Yeah.
knowing that, because I kind of had a brain fart because I said earlier, I was like, oh, I think Attack on Titan has a more impactful first chapter, but maybe To Your Eternity does. But first 2 chapters, I got to give that Attack on Titan.
That's fair. That's fair. I can see that. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, great story, and I'm excited to keep going.
Oh yes, absolutely. So that is all. Yes. So if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga, and it would be lovely if you'd like to support us by either rating our show on the podcast platforms or subscribing to our channel Umami Manga on YouTube. If you like this episode, please share it around with anyone you think might enjoy it too. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time when we'll talk about the next 4 volumes, the Female Titan arc. See you then. Bye bye.
See you later.
I've been holding Shino in my arms for like the past 10 minutes because she jumped onto the desk, and then I've just felt like I guess I might as well hold her to keep her calm. But she started fighting me like for the past 3 minutes.